And we're live.
Woohoo!
Yay. All right. Let's get rolling. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, July 9th, 2021. Today, we're recapping a week packed with rumors about iPhone, iPad, and Mac because this is the iMore show. Joining me, as always, is iMore contributor Karen Freeman. Hey, Karen.
Hello.
And joining us today is our special guest, iMore writer Luke Filipovich. Hey, Luke.
Hello.
All right. This episode is called Rumors Stew for a reason. It's been a week of rumors, lots of rumors, and that's to be expected because we're in the middle of summer now. It's not a lot of solid news this time of year. Just plugging away on those betas. And speaking of betas, there are new betas not for iOS 15 or any of the new stuff, but for iOS 14.7. iOS 11 or macOS 11.5, I think, and those sort of releases all got new betas this week. So if you're on that set of releases, you haven't jumped over to the sort of 15 generation yet, download those because one of them fixes a fairly massive bug, which we'll start off with this week. So a couple weeks back, I think, it came out, or maybe it was just even last week, it came out that there was a very specific Wi-Fi network that if you tried to join it, it would semi-permanently disable your iPhone's ability to connect to Wi-Fi at all. And it came out this morning. So the iOS 14.7 and I guess also the iOS or iPadOS 14.7 beta, those released Wednesday or yesterday. I can't even remember anymore because, as I often say, time is an illusion. And those new beta releases fix that issue. So if you haven't downloaded them yet, if you joined that Wi-Fi network, I think this is an instance where you need to update through your Mac. So we should be, if you have that problem, those betas should solve it. Just a little friendly PSA.
Good to know.
But yeah, we also frustratingly, at least it's frustrating to me, no new iOS 15 or watchOS 8 or macOS 12 betas this week, which I think is a little off schedule. We had public betas last week, but we also didn't have. But 2 weeks ago was when we had the second round of betas. I'm a little
developer betas, you mean?
Yeah, developer betas.
Yeah. Didn't the public beta come out like a tad earlier than we were expecting?
A tad earlier. Luke,
Yeah.
let's say that.
Like the 30th, June 30th, right? It was supposed to come out in July, but
which is totally not July.
Right. But one of them, I think it was the Mac one, came out actually in July.
Yeah,
right.
On July 1st.
Right. Yeah, I wonder. I wonder. I mean, we never know with betas. It's never like it's sometimes pretty consistently every 2 weeks, especially at the beginning. But then, they're working on things. Things are.
It would be really funny to me if they were already trying to get the developer betas and the public betas on the same schedule.
I feel like it's probably two different teams, though. No.
See, that's just it. The public beta is always whatever the previous developer beta was.
Oh, okay. So then they should be synchronized.
Usually, yeah, it's usually the same build. But usually what happens is Apple will release the developer beta, and then the week later they will release the public beta, and then the next week it's developer. After that, it's another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to give a little time for
on and on.
A little time for bugs stomping before releasing it to the public.
To the wider beta audience, I guess.
The slightly wider beta audience.
Yeah, I mean, given how quickly Apple turned around on the public betas, I am very confident in saying that, most years I always say, don't jump on the first developer beta. Now you really don't have to, even if you're really anxious to try the new stuff, because the turnaround is so quick.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Well, I think it depends. I agree with you, Joe, but I think it also depends on the build, right? Like if we have another, iOS 13 situation,
that's true.
Maybe still hold off if you definitely hear people talking about how bad the beta software is, because it can sometimes happen.
And if you are going to,
I just wanted to reiterate that you should never download betas on your primary devices if you need them. I myself have only downloaded the beta on my iPad because I can live without it if I need to, but I can't live and work without my phone and my MacBook. So no betas on those.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't download the Mac beta on this Mac that I'm speaking from because it will break all of my audio stuff. All of my audio apps.
Yeah. You can't take a chance. It seems like most of the iMore crew has like backup machines. I don't have any of those, so no betas for me.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into some of this week's fresh new rumors. I want to start with the M2 and the next generation MacBook Air. So there had been some rumblings that we were going to see the M1X Max, or whatever that chip is eventually going to be called. We're going to keep calling it M1X until we know otherwise. That the M1X Max were going to launch at some point this summer. I think that was the original thought. Like the rumor that we were going to see an M1X MacBook Pro at WWDC, which like that's in the YouTube. It was in the YouTube tag, so it probably wasn't far off.
Yeah.
But now it looks like those are kind of slated for fall. If the other rumors that these computers are supposed to have like mini LED displays, if those rumors pan out, that makes a lot of sense to me, given how much trouble Apple's had with the mini LED display on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Just in terms of yields and keeping those in stock, it's been a hard time for them. But we were supposed to get those this summer theoretically, and then we were, I guess, supposed to start seeing M2 Max this fall. M2 being the next generation Apple Silicon powered Mac chip,
right?
Sort of based on the same architecture as the as yet unannounced A15. But now it looks like that's not the case. Looks like
2022 now.
Yeah. So Karen,
for the M2.
Talk to us a little bit about this new report.
Well, the new report it's from Dylan DKT. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. They're saying that the Apple's M2 processor is on track to release in the first half of 2022, alongside the upcoming colorful MacBook, possibly Air. So, and the Air in parentheses. Not sure what that means.
I would imagine that the Air in parentheses is just a bit of a hedge on this person's
right.
Mm-hmm. Just saying this could be a MacBook, could be a MacBook Air, maybe but that level of computer, like the $1,000 entry level laptop.
Right. And then they did note that this is different from the rumored M1X or whatever process. Yeah. This is totally different. So
yeah. I think our friend Renee Ritchie this week compared the M1 to the theoretical M1X, like looking back at Intel chips. Like the M1 is kind of like the i5 equivalent versus the M1X's i9 equivalent. It's the same family, just beefier.
Yeah.
And the M2 is the next generational leap.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, colorful. We've heard these rumors about a colorful MacBook or MacBook Air before. We've seen theoretical renders from John Prosser. I, for one, as someone who has to plan content around this, don't mind this sort of splitting up of all of the MacBooks instead of them all coming at one event, maybe splitting them between summer and fall. I also think it's better from a product messaging perspective if Apple has not, one set of computers with an M1 even variant chip versus the M2. M2, isn't that more powerful? Well, yes and no, but it muddles the messaging a lot less if they can separate the releases.
Right.
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting parts in this rumor for me comes from Ming-Chi Kuo, where Kuo also says that in 2022 there will be a new MacBook Air featuring a fresh design that will be priced lower than the current M1 version. That's because the cost of Apple. That's because the cost of Apple Silicon is much lower than Intel. That Apple can offset the increased cost of the mini LED technology. So
Well, we
that's
love to see
interesting.
price drops.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. The way that quote is worded, I almost wonder. It says price lower, but then it also talks about how the silicon's cheaper, but the increased cost of the mini LED. So I wonder if that means more of like will be priced the same low amount. I don't know. I'm curious, but like
Well, it
when I
says
saw
lower, so I mean,
Yeah.
maybe only $50 lower, but
So that's curious, actually, to me, because I'm not sure we'd heard that. So the way this sentence is structured, so it says, to reiterate, it says, Quo also says that in 2022 there will be a new MacBook Air featuring a fresh design that will be priced lower than the current M1 version. That's because the cost of the Apple Silicon is so much lower than Intel that Apple can offset. Okay, the mini LED technology. That sentence makes it sound like that is bound to the MacBook, bound for the MacBook Air and not just the MacBook Pros.
Yeah,
which I'm not sure we'd
sure.
heard before. I mean, it's great if that is the case, but that also strikes me as like fairly soon, like a brand new screen technology for the Mac while also cutting the price. That is a head scratcher for me. I don't know that that makes complete sense if they're doing both of those in the same computer.
I guess we'll see.
Now, mini LED, another, I think this is another rumor from this week. There is a mini LED, or there's supposedly 14 and 16 inch mini LED MacBook Pros on course for this fall with like the M1X processor. So yeah, Karen, I am interested to see, you've expressed on the show before a question as to why Apple would have both 13 and 14 inch computers just because they're so close.
13 and 14 inch MacBook Pros specifically.
Yeah.
If they had the 13 inch MacBook Air and the 14 inch MacBook Pro,
that makes more sense. They're totally different computers.
Totally different computers and totally different markets.
But yeah, you're right.
But yeah,
I mean,
the
it is
13
weird.
and 14 Pro doesn't make sense to me.
So yeah, I think we'll see that put to the test. We'll see if there's any significant confusion. I mean, assuming this pans out just like this, where there is a 14 and 16 inch, I don't think we'll see Apple get rid of the 13 inch M1 MacBook Pro. You know,
the only thing I can think of is if they keep the 13 inch kind of like as their older model, and then you know how they always keep like one old iPhone model in the lineup, in the current lineup, and then they just eventually phase it out.
Sort of, yeah. It already becomes like the phase out model.
Yeah,
which is I feel like is a little odd for Macs. They usually just bump them, or they'll have like an education model. But yeah, that I mean, that's interesting. Maybe
I can't imagine they're going to keep a 13 and a 14 inch model like going forward. If they have both at the same time, they've got to be getting rid of the 13. That's all I can think.
I think the 14 inch model is sort of this is going to be the souped up smaller one. I'm of the opinion it kind of offers it kind of brings a little less confusion to the line, and I'll explain myself. So in eons past, when things were kind of fairly normal, let's say 2019, you had two 13 inch models of MacBook Pro and a 15 then 16 inch, replaced by the 16 inch. The two 13 inch models though were vastly different from one another. One was a fairly low end machine, especially with, I mean, not to bash them, but like Intel parts. There is a difference between Intel chips in the lower end 13 inch Pros versus the higher end 13 inch Pros. And so you had the sort of kind of lower end machine and the higher end machine, both 13 inches. And I think there was some confusion there, especially after they brought the touch bar to all of them. And I think with a 13 and 14 inch in that sort of same like smaller MacBook Pro category, it is easier to point to, well, this is sort of the entry level computer, and this very slightly bigger one, that's the souped up version. It's got
But I
the
feel like
M1X.
the entry level is the Air then. That's what I would think.
The Air is the true entry level. I would say that the you get the Air if you want the M1. You get the entry level Pro if you want a laptop with a fan.
Huh. Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm always thinking from the perspective of a salesperson at the Apple Store because I was one, and I'm just thinking like, anytime a new product comes out, I'm always thinking like, who's the audience for this? Because that was my job, really. I mean, a salesperson at Apple, their job is to match people up with the right equipment for them. It's not to sell them the most expensive equipment. It's not to just sell. It's to match people with their perfect products. And I'm just thinking like, who is the perfect product for? A 13-inch MacBook Pro, when there's a 14-inch MacBook Pro, and when there's a cheaper 13-inch MacBook Air.
Yeah, I
don't see an audience for that.
And Karen, I think you're probably right that the 13-inch M1 computer does almost immediately become the phase-out model. It's like they'll have one configuration of it, and then, oh, look, the 14-inch Pro. And maybe this pricing stuff for the Air also feeds into the Pro, where they can start that smaller Pro lower. I think you're probably right. My view on it is more just like as it would exist now. I'm not sure they'd just chuck the M1 MacBook Pro immediately. I'm just kind of thinking of the story Apple could theoretically tell.
Yeah. No, I know they wouldn't chuck it immediately, but I do think they would phase it out. That's just,
although,
yeah,
you know,
I agree with that for sure. I think it would be the phase out model.
We say that, and then this is the same company that in the mid 2000s, tossed their most successful ever at that point iPod in order to sell a new one. They just got rid of the iPod Mini to sell the iPod Nano after a year. So they could conceivably do it.
Right. Apple does what Apple does.
Yeah. The Nano was a better product overall. It had flash storage instead of a very tiny spinning disk. All right. So yeah, I think the idea of mini LED in the MacBook Air kind of threw me a bit, just because we hadn't heard that before. But if they're ready to put it in the MacBook Air, that's kind of exciting. I got to tell you, I've been using this M1 MacBook Pro, M1 iPad Pro with the mini LED screen, and that screen is great. Like it is a huge improvement.
Did you get the 12.9?
Yeah, I got the 12.9.
So you haven't had any issues with the screen at all? Because I saw some chatter online that like the edges of the screen were wonky.
So no. So okay, I would say there are some peculiarities with mini LED, say, versus OLED.
Okay, so like what?
So the biggest thing that I've experienced is there is sort of it really depends on what elements of the screen are there. Like if the clock is there or the status bar is there. But if you're say watching a piece of content and you have black bars on the top and bottom of the content, and you have, say, the clock and the status bar, you will get a bit of a bloom effect around, say, white elements, because it's not an OLED screen where every individual pixel is being lit as you need them. It is these zones that are being lit. And while there are 10,000 of them, some of them are going to sort of overrun the actual screen elements that need to be displayed. So you will get a little bit of a glow, but that's really a consequence of mini LED, I think.
Okay, so why is mini LED something to be excited about then? If it has blooming issues just by definition,
it has blooming. I would say incidental blooming issues. They're not prevalent, but they happen. I would say it's exciting because of, say, the contrast. The contrast level, the color it provides. It's a lot better than just regular LEDs. Like, it's notably better HDR content, especially if you're creating HDR content and say and you know, you've got an M1 on there, so you can create HDR videos and stuff. I would actually, anybody who has the new iPad Pro or 12.9 inch iPad Pro, there's YouTuber Jonathan Morrison. He has created 1 or 2 videos in HDR. I think he did his iPad Pro review video in HDR, and it's in HDR on YouTube, which is not something I see a lot still even today. And it's astounding. I've watched it in HDR and non-HDR. It is like the difference is night and day. You know, the brights are a lot brighter, the darks are a lot darker. It's you know, it's almost like having an OLED display, which is interesting because there are rumors that OLED displays are actually coming to iPads. But we'll get into that in a bit. Speaking of the mini LED display in the iPad, it sounds like the smaller iPad Pro might be getting that soon. Well, soonish. So yeah, Ming-Chi Kuo was busy this week. Like very busy.
I feel like
So
half of our news was from him this week.
Yeah, so we got MacBook Pro stuff, MacBook Air stuff, which was him and some other people. And now we have iPad Air, the 11-inch iPad Air. Will apparently be getting a mini LED display next year, which I think we could have predicted, but also still nice to hear.
I thought he said it was the 11-inch iPad Pro.
Oh yeah, iPad Pro. I mixed up MacBook Air and iPad Pro.
Yeah,
I made them one product, which is what Apple did. But actually, yeah, I mean, I'll have something to say on that in a second. But yeah, good. That's really all I have to say about that. Is good. It's a great screen. So
I really would like to see them side by side, because it's you know, all this talk about mini LED and OLED. It's hard to really visualize without seeing them side by side.
So I would encourage you, and as I would encourage anybody watching or listening live or after or not so live, to check out iMore's review from back in April. Now, I guess of the M1 iPad Pro by our friend, editor-in-chief of Android Central, Daniel Bader. He did a better than decent side-by-side comparison of an older iPad Pro versus the new iPad Pro screen, both 12.9 inches, watching like the same content, and he found the difference to be fairly stark.
I agree with you, Karen. Like, as someone who hasn't ever had an iPad Pro and hasn't experienced, I mean, I know I've seen OLED displays. Obviously, my iPhone has one and whatnot. But like, in terms of the difference between mini LED and just regular LED on the iPad Pro, I think it's something where like Bader and Daniel Bader said in his comparison and his review, it was like, it's like once you actually do look at it, it's like, oh, it's there. But it's hard to just visualize. It's hard to just like when people talk about it, it's hard to really
imagine
understand. Yeah, I'm looking at his review now, and I'm looking at the side by side pictures, and I'm like, I see that they're different, but I don't know that one is really better. And if I had to pick one, I'm not sure that I would pick the one that is the mini LED. I think in some cases the older screen looks better.
That I think is sort of the interesting conundrum that Apple finds himself in, because Apple is really good at displays, you guys. They're really good at displays.
I know. And I have to say, I'm just really happy with the displays on all the devices I have. And that's a 3-year-old. I have the 2018. Actually, I have the old iPad that he is using as comparison. And this one, the iPad Pro from 2018.
I mean, yeah.
I'm very happy with the display. I don't want anything else from it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And looking at these pictures doesn't convince me that I need that. Like, okay, the woman's color is a little bit more realistic in the comparison. The blast, the space blast looks a little bit better on the 2021. But the picture where he has the lightsabers side by side, I think it actually looks better on the older screen.
I will
So
also say, I think it is hard to tell from a photograph. It really is something you need to see in person side by side.
I know that's what I said at the beginning,
Yeah,
that I
you're
need to see them
absolutely
side by
right.
side, and you said go look at the review. So I went and
No,
looked
no,
at the review.
really more read it. Really more read it.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
No, I did. I read it at the time, but I'm
but yeah,
saying Daniel is totally convinced that the new one is better, and that's great. But I need to see them side by side to
yeah.
see if it makes a difference to me. It's
And I
not
think
like when Retina was first announced. Like as soon as I saw a Retina screen for the first time, I was like immediately in love, and I was like, I need everything Retina all the time, and I couldn't wait to get rid of every single device I had and replace it with a Retina screen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I remember
This is not that to me.
I remember like, and I think we've talked about this before, going into that, like watching that. Well, I guess you really couldn't watch it at the time because Apple still wasn't live streaming all of its stuff. But like going into that WWDC, thinking we knew what the iPhone 4 was, and then we didn't, and it was all down to that screen.
Yeah, it just blew me away.
Yeah,
I think it blew everybody away.
And yeah, so Apple's been great at displays for a while, and so when it comes to improvements like this, it's almost a cop out to say you need to see it in person. You can't really just hear about it, but at the same time, and this is especially like the last year and a half has been a bad time for you really have to see it in person.
Mhm.
It's a bad time to see things in person, but I think it's a worthy addition. I think it'd be a worthy addition to the 11-inch lineup. What I'm curious about here is, would we see the same thing with the 11-inch that we saw with the 12.9-inch in that the price would go up by $100?
Yeah.
Is now the time Apple starts bumping the iPad Pro price, especially now that they've got the iPad Air with a similar design, really the same design. Let's be real, just doesn't have Face ID. I think because for a little while it's been like, why would you get a 256 gigabyte Air when you could get a 128 gigabyte iPad Pro that's the same size? Unless you really need 256 gigabytes and you don't want a Pro. But with at an additional $100, that is an easier question to answer. But I don't know how long we can actually rest on those particular laurels, because there is yet another rumor about iPad screens. This is another one. This is from a group called Display Supply Chain Consultants. And this is about the they call it the 10.9-inch iPad, which right now we just know is the iPad Air. That is reportedly supposed to get an AMOLED display, which, don't ask me to define that acronym. I can't actually remember, except the OLED part is always organic light emitting diode.
Right.
But yeah, it's sort of like a better version of OLED, supposedly. And
Active matrix.
thank you, Karen for the win. Active matrix. That okay. I don't. Let's pick technology names that we don't have to dictionary define for consumers. Active matrix. I'm not specifically sure what active matrix. I know that there are a lot of Android phones that have had AMOLED displays for years. They look great. I think Samsung uses AMOLED, or they use.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it is a much better version of an OLED. It's a much better version of an OLED screen, I think, at least from a power consumption perspective. But don't quote me on that. But yeah, 10.9-inch display, an OLED iPad Air. They're running through screen technologies real fast over there in Cupertino. We got OLED on the iPhones. We got AMOLED apparently coming to iPads. We've got and now we've got mini LED, but only for like a year or two. It's pick a lane, Apple. Pick a lane. Yeah. I think this is going to be one that doesn't have that sort of bloom issue, because it'll be like OLED displays. Only the pixels you need will light up.
Yeah.
I think before now the issue, because some people have been like, why not just put OLED on the iPad? I think the issue is oddly enough size. Like we've got TV size OLED panels, we've got phone size OLED panels, but I guess there have been issues with sort of tablet sized OLED panels, mostly because there aren't comparatively as many tablets in the world.
That is true.
Yeah. Luke, what you're on the entry level iPad, yeah, the 10.2 inch model.
Yeah, the from 2020, which was the last time they refreshed it, late 2020. Yeah.
Are you at all interested in an AMOLED iPad Air? Would that get you to jump up to a new iPad level?
Honestly, for me, probably not. But that's just because I kind of use my iPad pretty. I use my iPad basically for if I want to check on things, like, and I'm not around my computer for whatever reason. I travel with it or whatever. But I don't do any sort of serious work on it. I don't. It's never been my workflow because I've always had some sort of computer that's kind of been my main computer. So just like personally, it's not my workflow. So I don't feel compelled. Like everything I want in an iPad is in the iPad 2020. I don't need anything super fancy or anything like that really is like a workhorse or gets extra stuff done. Yeah, so I don't know if it would compel me completely. I think what might compel me more so is just like the the fact that like when I was looking kind of between the iPad 2020 and the iPad Air, it's like there's so many extra features at the iPad Air, like just all encompassing. It is such like a nice package, I suppose. And it seems when you look at the price difference, it seems like all of that stuff that it gives you is worth that extra money. And so like, I feel like that's always in my brain a little bit, but I'm very happy with the iPad 2020, to be honest.
Also makes it dangerous.
Yeah, right. It's like that's probably just the consumerist mentality that Apple has put into me now, where I always want the latest thing. But I don't think an AMOLED display would be something that would like immediately be like, all right, now I need to jump to the iPad Air thing. I think that's just because of the way that I specifically use my iPad as very like light, kind of, the sort of browse play and like check emails kind of person on my iPad.
Sort of like the original use of the iPad from like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like I just used it for that.
Yeah, I'm a purist, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm with you, Luke. That's how I use my iPad too. I don't even know why I got the iPad Pro. I think it was just because, shiny. It was new and fancy, and it was the most expensive at the time. I thought it was cool, but I could probably go back. I could probably go to an Air or even a regular iPad next time when I.
Yeah, that would be my question for you, Karen. Is if you were like, let's say next, the new iPads come out next year and they're great, and you feel the need to upgrade for one reason or another. I mean, are you up? Do you think you downgrade to an Air? Still probably a fine.
I don't know. I mean, frankly, the thing that that really pushed me to the iPad Pro was the smaller bezels and the larger screen. Mm-hmm. So just being able to get a larger screen in a smaller package, because I can't do 12.9. It's just too big for me to carry around. Yeah. So I'm all about maximizing screen real estate, and that was the best way to do it. Also, I thought that I might use it for work, and in practice, that just hasn't panned out.
Yeah, it just wasn't.
So it just, for you. Yeah. If I could really efficiently work on my iPad, I would stay in the Pro. But since I really don't, I really use it more like Luke. Consuming material. So I'd probably be fine downgrading. But we'll see. Every time I downgrade, I end up regretting it. I downgraded to the 12. Not Pro. This time it's the first time I've had a non-Pro phone in a while, and I'm anxious to get back to the Pro. So we'll see.
and Luke, thinking of so you just got the 2020 iPad, iPad nothing.
iPad nothing.
So it's fairly new, but would a redesign get you to upgrade like immediately?
Oh yeah, like if they did change it to being, you know, I mean, I've always been a fan of Touch ID. In fact, I love the fact that now I have an M1 iMac now, and that comes with the Touch ID keyboard, and I'm super happy that's there. And I've always loved Touch ID, but like, yeah, if they switched it to like the newer kind of like near like less bezels kind of design, and they just, you know, they did that and sort of made it like the iPhone XR, I suppose, of the iPads, then I think that would get me to probably get another one, to be sure. Because like I agree, like everyone loves more screen, you know, like I'm not immune to that. You know, that is obviously another consideration of the iPad Air too. When you're thinking about it, it's just like you do get, it is like a, you know, a bit of a nicer display, and also like a you know, a bigger display, and doesn't, you know, it's pretty much in mostly the same form factor. I mean, the same size, like the iPad, it's like what, 0.7 of an inch difference between the screen size. So
yeah, but when you're holding it right in front of your face, like 0.7 of an inch is not nothing.
No, for sure. But I mean, like that's why I like the fact that they're, like you said, maximizing the screen real estate, where you don't have to get like a bigger device to have a bigger screen. You can get like the same device and get like a bigger screen. So like that for sure would make me jump on board 100%.
So before we continue, Karen, why don't you tell us about today's sponsor?
Yay. Hey, iMore show fans. We're going to take a quick second to talk about Hover, one of our sponsors. We know you love learning about tech, and Hover is a great tech company to talk about. Hover is a jumping off point for a ton of entrepreneurs, and they want you to start your business with a domain name. Hover has over 300 domain name extensions to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there's a domain name waiting for it. You'll find excellent technical support available to answer any questions you may have. Their support team doesn't upsell you. They only work hard to help you get online. With free Whois privacy protection, a clean user interface and user experience, and monthly sales on popular top-level domains. It's not hard to see why Hover is a popular choice for people starting all kinds of businesses. Hover offers best-in-class customer and technical support, domains and email to pair with your domain, clean and easy to navigate UX and UI, and over 300 domain name extensions to choose from. Grab your desired domain name at hover.com/iMore. Get a 10% discount with our referral link on all new purchases. That's hover.com/iMore. Make a name for yourself with Hover.
All right. Thanks, Karen. All right. Let's move on to the iPhone 13, because of course we have more rumors about the iPhone 13.
So many more rumors.
Just it really is. It's a rumor stew.
And they all seem to be pretty in line with each other.
Yeah,
it seems that the dummy units have gone out.
Yeah. And it does. It looks like we're just getting a much larger camera bump this time. Just the whole thing. It's going to be half camera next year, and then the whole thing's just going to be a camera next year.
You know what? I would be cool with that. I would be totally cool with that. You want a whole camera on
the back? You want the whole back to be a camera?
Yes.
Lenses all the way down.
All lenses all the time. Yeah. No, I mean, I love to take photos, particularly travel photos. Now that we're starting to travel again, I am all in. I want the best camera that I can have in my pocket. I don't want to have to carry around. I do own an SLR, a digital SLR, but it's just too big. I'm not going to carry that around in my travels. I like to travel light. And the iPhone is it for me. So I want the best camera I can get.
Karen has spent a year with just 2 cameras on the back of her phone, and she is rare and ready to return.
Yes. Well, luckily it was the year that I spent in my house, so it didn't matter that much.
At least there's that. I mean, I've brought it up before, but a while ago there was someone was doing some kind of computational photography. They made a product that was just for computational photography, and it was like it looked like iPhone sized, and it had a bunch of different cameras all over it, just like this weird multi-eyed beast of a thing. And I keep imagining that when I think, well, how many cameras could we get on here That's how many cameras we could get on here, like 16 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially on the Pro Max. Those beasts. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's the big thing I'm getting here is just well, first we have like a case leak, an iPhone 13 Pro case leak that just shows a massive new camera bump that's, I mean, to my eye, half the width of the camera when it's in sort of portrait orientation.
More than it looks like, slightly more than half even.
Well, the lip, I think that might just be the lip on the.
Oh yeah, you're right.
On the case itself, but yeah, no, still like in
Yeah,
a
the
case
hole.
like that.
The hole is about half.
But Karen, that's a great point because, you know, a camera bump that big is going to, I mean, that case is going to be mostly just camera bump at the top. It's going to be ridiculous. Okay. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, you know, just a different version of those leaks that we saw for, I think it was the Google Pixel 6 design, where it's like a camera bar. Like the camera bar, it's like it's normal at the top, normal on most of the back, but then there's just like this bar, this thin bar at the top.
Yeah.
Glad we don't deal with that.
Well, that might be coming. You never know.
That's true.
I mean, I like my phone to look pretty, but the function has to come before the looks.
That's true. And I think the idea is most people have a case on their phone all of the time anyway, which is not me, but I think most people do. And so they can do things like lay their phones flat on their backs on like a table or a desk.
Yeah.
Whereas mine's, at a slight angle. Actually, usually mine's in my pocket because I'm usually standing up at a small desk that doesn't have room for it. Luke, what do you think of this camera bump?
I mean, I'm jealous. Like I'm still rocking an iPhone 10. So yeah. I've been jealous of the cameras for a while now. I think it's definitely time for an upgrade at some point for me. I've kind of been procrastinating on it and been doing other things and spending my money elsewhere. But because it's not like my iPhone 10 doesn't work great. It works great. But yeah, I think like I'm kind of, even though I am a very avid, I mean, I'm like an amateur photographer, but I'm very avid of like, I carry around my mirrorless camera a lot for, actually taking pictures. But there's so many instances where like the iPhone is the only camera I have and I want to grab a shot. If I'm out with friends at a drink on the patio, I'm probably not bringing my camera with me or whatever. Like I don't quite take it everywhere. It's like when I know I'm going to take pictures, I will obviously bring my camera along with me, but there's so many opportunities that come up and like something cool happens or you want to take a picture or whatever, I go for a walk in the park and then I wasn't expecting the sunset to look as good or, anything. And so I'm a big fan of just like the iPhone, if the old adage that your best camera is the camera you have on you. So why not make the camera you have on you, which is likely your phone for most people because you carry it around probably 24/7. Why not make that the best camera it can be? So I've been jealous of especially when they finally switched to even just the second one, even if you don't have the third camera, they switched it to, instead of being the telephoto, they switched it to that wide angle, which is so useful. And I'm so sad that I don't have that on my current phone because that's such a useful tool. I think way more useful.
Just take a few steps back.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Zoom in and out with your feet. I think that's the old adage is zoom with your feet.
Yeah.
So, so in the comments, Phone Pup had a question for me, asking if I found it easier having the mini since I also had an iPad and Mac for continuity. I'm not totally sure I understand the question, but it's not like having the mini has been bad at all. And I mean, it works great with the iPad and the Mac and having everything work together. It's just I do miss the having three cameras, and I do miss because I had the 11 Pro previously, so I had the three cameras, and I also miss the battery life because it's just terrible on the mini. I mean, terrible. It lasts about half a day if I'm using my phone heavily. It lasts about half a day.
Yeah, I definitely think while for a lot of people the mini could be appealing, it's if you use your phone heavily throughout the day, it isn't for you. But for someone like me, who actually doesn't. I find I don't use my phone heavily throughout the day. I'm usually at my computer. I mean, then I think it is. I think it is for me. That sort of thing is for me. I'm still determined, Karen, to get a 13 or 12S or whatever they call it mini this year.
So another interesting thing is I was talking to one of the case makers, and this is a well-known brand. I don't want to say it because they told me this is sort of like confidential off the record, but it's a name that you would like everybody would know. And they said they had reached out to let me know about some of the new cases that they had for the 12 lineup, and they had the 12 Pro, and they had the 12 Pro Max. And I said no 12 mini cases, and they said no, they're basically that they're not selling, that like their 12 mini cases didn't sell, so that when they came out with new ones, they just didn't even bother. They're like, yeah, we're kind of done with the mini.
That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
So presumably probably won't release any, or at least not many, for the 13 mini either, if and when they announce that. So just an interesting little tidbit, little behind the scenes tidbit I thought people might be interested in. But I have to say, I love the size. I mean, there are things I don't like, but that mini size is just perfect for me. It's just the right size.
I think for people who heavily use multiple devices, me definitely, who aren't like, I've never been a big YouTube on my phone guy. You know what I mean? Like I have an iPad for that, or a Mac, or hell, the computer I built. And TVs, I have other devices that are better for YouTube. Yeah, but
for sure.
Yeah, I think things like content consumption on a phone, you want a bigger screen. You do want a bigger screen than a mini. As someone who has watched video on a mini, the iPhone 12 Pro that I've got is better for that. It just is, because it's a 6.1 inch screen. But for those of us who, I mean, since that's not how I use my phone mostly, it would be a little heartbreaking to see the mini go away. Which
Phone Pup in the comments also mentioned the size of the mini for texting, and I actually find it perfect. At first, I was like, "Wow, my hands are so close together," but the more I got used to it very quickly, and it really is. It is the perfect size phone for me. My hands are just the right size for texting. It's all perfect. Like you said, Joe, for consumption, for watching movies or things like that, I switched to my iPad. There's certainly things I don't really do with my phone, but I use my phone probably more than any other device. So it needs to last me a little longer.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a great size for your hand. It's not a great size for having more battery.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But how about you, Joe? Are you able to, because your hands are a lot bigger than mine, are you able to text, like do the 2-thumb quick text on the mini?
I am, but one of the things for me is that I'm more of a one-handed phone user than I used to think I was. Like
even for texting?
Even for texting. Well, I use the swipe keyboard a lot because it works really well.
I mean, do you write long texts?
No.
Oh, because I do. I write long, wordy text with no abbreviations.
Joe is a man of few words. We all
right.
Yeah. You have both gotten Slack messages from me. You know, I prefer as few words as possible. Yes, no, sure, I guess.
That's true.
This is me. This is just who I am. So I can, and it's not a problem for me. And even if I do use two hands, it's fine. It is that phenomenon like you were talking about, Karen. Oh, my hands are so close together, especially with my hands. They get really close.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, were you able to get used to that? Can you do the rapid two thumb texting? Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting because you and I are sort of like at opposite ends of it, like the hand size,
the hand spectrum. Yeah, but. Yeah, I can, and I did get used to it. But again, I'm mostly a one-handed phone user, even with text entry. So that I mean, it works. It works better for me. And just psychologically, I like that I can do that one-handed without activating that side justified keyboard. I don't know. It means that I can more easily, just in my brain, switch from two-handed to one-handed use. Yeah. Whenever I need to. Yeah. But I look at this I mean, going back to this camera bump, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, so they're calling this an iPhone 13 Pro case. Is the standard 13 line, so the 13 and the 13 mini, are they also getting much bigger camera bumps? Like, I assume some of this is to accommodate the like new sensor assembly for one of the cameras, which all of the phones are supposed to be getting. So I have to imagine they all are.
I think it will. And that means that for the mini, it's going to take up like 2/3 of the width of the phone.
Mini phone, maxi camera.
Maxi camera. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
So Luke, you said you talked about how you have an iPhone 13. Do you think, or an iPhone 13, an iPhone 10, not an iPhone 13. Do you think you'll finally upgrade this year? Do you think this might be the year for you?
Yeah, I think so. I've been thinking about it a lot. Just I've been humming and hawing if I want to just like get a 12 now or if I want to wait. And
don't get a 12 now.
Well, that's the thing. I
would never let you. If you came into my store when I was working at Apple, I would never let you buy a 12 now unless your 10 was like shattered.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what I went with. I was like, no, I might as well see what they have and see what's up and
yeah, because as I would tell my customers, even if the 13 is not compelling to you, if they're still selling the 12, it'll be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it'll be cheaper. So I think this is definitely the year for sure for an upgrade for me. I mean, like I said, my iPhone 10 still running great. I'm running the developer beta on it right now, like the iOS 15, and it's running perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Apple's super great at supporting their phones, a lot longer than a lot of other manufacturers.
Sure. iPhone 6S.
Yeah, right.
And actually, that reminds me that Dalva had asked earlier in the comments if anybody is running the betas on like a 6S, 7, or 8. Has anybody tried that?
I don't.
Have you heard about anyone like how they're running on older devices?
I haven't.
Yeah, I actually I noticed Dalva said that. I meant to bring it up earlier, but I actually have an old iPhone 7 that I don't really use, and it kind of makes me want to maybe try and get the beta on it and maybe see if there is something.
Yeah, now that you can get the public beta, I feel like those are a little safer. Maybe try it out. That's up to you.
Even getting developer betas on phones is a lot easier than it used to be. So yeah,
I think my iPhone 10 at this point, like even if the iPhone 13 or whatever it ends up being called is even just like a marginal bump from what we have now, like that's still going to be a pretty significant upgrade from what I'm at. So
right. Well, the longer you wait between upgrades, the bigger your upgrade experience is going to be, more exciting.
Yeah. So I think I'm right in that Goldilocks stage that I like to be in, where it's like upgrading is going to feel awesome, even if like the iPhone 13 isn't maybe the best upgrade from the previous year. Like it's still going to feel really awesome for me, and I think it'd be a good time. And like we were talking about, I've been jealous of the cameras on the new camera array for a while now. Since it was on the iPhone, 11 and then 12 and whatnot. So I've been wanting that. I want that ultra wide. I want it.
So Luke, for you, would you thinking like 13 or 13 Pro or 13 mini, or where's your mind at?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, I've always liked like just kind of like the standard size, if you want to put it that way. So that would put me somewhere in the like probably iPhone 13/iPhone 13 Pro market. I probably would lean more towards just stock, like the regular iPhone 13. It kind of depends on what Pro features they have, like what extra stuff comes out.
If the features outweigh the colors that are surely going to be better for the non-Pro version.
Notice where Karen's mind nest. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Luke.
I was going to say, especially since I've been obsessed with color now since I got this blue M1 iMac.
Oh, it is gorgeous.
Your
iMac.
I feel bad for. I mean, I guess I've only seen the blue in person, but I feel bad for ever doubting the colors, because now I'm like, I think they're awesome. I think this blue specifically, it's like, it's so nice, and like
it's really pretty.
it's making me like, I know these are super expensive and I definitely don't have the money for these, but I'm like, maybe I'll treat myself come Christmas time to some blue AirPods Max, because those would look really good just hanging right beside my iMac. You know?
Oh yeah,
it's like both of those colors. You got the sort of
Yeah.
lighter blue on the cups, but you've got the darker blue on the band.
Yeah, they're made to go together. Maybe start dropping some hints to your family. Maybe you could get them all to pool in together and
Yeah. We'll see. A Christmas present to myself, or perhaps a joint Christmas present from literally everybody I know.
Right.
They're that expensive, especially in Canada. They're like pushing $800. So
I'm all about like pooling for one big gift rather than a lot of little things.
But I agree, Karen. Like the colors would also be a bit of a consideration too, because like, although most of my iPhones in the past have been just white or black, usually, at least back in the day when they first came out with like gold editions and things like that, I was always really hyped about those.
Yeah.
And now that they do have more colors, I just haven't upgraded recently. I've looked at some of the colors and been like, man, it'd be fun to have a color phone. I like color. Not everything has to be black or white to me.
maybe the next phone they'll have like the exact same shade as the iMac. Because I don't think either of the blues of the 12 are exactly the same as the iMac, are they?
They're very close. If they're
pretty close. The Pacific blue is
the
Pacific blue is pretty close to like what the back of the iMac is, like the darker color. Okay. It's pretty close. I
felt like the Pacific blue had more green in it. It was a little bit like more teal, like sort of a teal blue.
Yeah,
I think so.
Oh, you have it.
Yeah. This is the Pacific blue.
Yeah, see, that's not how I picture the iMac looking. Again, I haven't seen it in real life.
Yeah, it kind of. I would say it's like. It's also like how space gray almost every year changes depending on certain things. Like nothing, I feel like when it comes to color, it's so hard to get it exactly right. And especially when materials change and whatnot and processes change. But the Pacific blue is close. Actually, I think that the back actually does have a bit of like it's very blue.
Is it exact though? Because if it's close but not exact, it could look weird together.
Oh no. Has it frozen?
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm here.
Your video froze for me.
Your face was frozen for a minute.
Okay.
But I heard you all along.
Yeah, if they came out with the blue that was like exact, whether it's like the back or if like even if it's kind of like this front sort of pale color that I've actually really come to love, like on the bottom chin of the iMac, I actually really like that.
Both really nice shades of blue.
Yeah. So like if they even came out with something closer to that, I think that would almost need to be an instant buy for me, I think, at this point.
Remember,
I could see that.
Remember when we were all complaining about the lighter colors on the front of the iMacs and Luke has fallen in love?
Yeah. I wasn't complaining about the lighter colors. I don't like things to be too contrasty, but they are both really nice colors, the blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we can pretty much count on, and of course, the taste is subjective. I think we can count on the colors for the mainline iPhone 13 being better than the Pro line iPhone 13, just like they were with the 12.
I know. That bums me out.
Why? What is it about the word Pro that means we don't like fun?
It means you're serious. You're a serious person. You don't do colors.
I think
that was amazing.
Yeah,
Jim,
I think it's.
I need you to get that frame for the thumbnail.
I think it's just a lot of I think also just a lot of, like even it kind of goes into the whole sort of like postmodern or like, minimalist kind of like architecture and design philosophy that we're in a lot right now and things like that. It's just like very clean colors is very like, and if they are colored, they tend to be paler, kind of like some more subtle shades and things. I think it's just like sort of the hip like design right now in terms of just like design in general. Like I think you can look at interior design, you can look at product design, and you can see a lot of similarities. And I think you're right. I think since Pro is sort of like it is supposed to give like Karen's amazing voice she put on just a second ago. It is supposed to give you that sort of like
this is appropriate for an office.
Feel of class and feel of like prestige, I suppose. And I feel like a lot of that is really like muted colors, very like stark, like whites, blacks, grays, things
white
like that.
And gray are like the big colors right now in design.
Yeah. So
Here's my challenge to Apple on that. Why be hip and why be prestigious when you could be fun instead?
Well, because it can do it. They believe and they do both. So
Yeah, they do.
You know, it's fine to have muted colors, but also have the fun ones, the good ones, the product red ones, or that really nice deep blue from the iPhone 12. Where's that?
Purple.
Purple. You know, they came out with the purple iPhone 12. There's no purple iPhone 12 Pro.
I know.
No.
I wish.
It's a color crime. It's just it's a crime against paint chips.
Yeah.
All right. We are down to the end of our hour, folks. It's been a nice little rumor pot stirring here. Lots of fun talking about iPads, iPhones, and Macs and whatnot. I want to say thanks to Luke for joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, big thanks to our live listeners. It's always fun to watch you folks in the comments. Just note that if you are rude to us, you know, criticism is one thing, but if you are rude to us, I have no trouble blocking anybody. I just want to point that out for future reference. Big thanks to everyone who's going to listen to us later in their podcatcher of choice. And huge ups to Jim Metzendorf, our editor extraordinaire, who always makes us sound so wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. And until next time, this has been the iMore Show. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.